Hi, welcome to Timberhaven. My name's Brad Mercer, National Sales Manager. Now you may not be familiar with Timberhaven, but we're a log home and a timber home manufacturer located in Middleburg, Pennsylvania. We have approximately 50 representatives across the country that service our clients in different geographic areas, and we also have an international presence as well. We were established in 2013. We have a team of 17 experts that have average of over 25 years experience. And today we're looking forward to sharing with you some of the manufacturing processes that we go through with each and every one of our dream homes that we're supplying for our customers. Let me show you an example of some of what we're going to be taking a look at today. Now you can see this display here, and what we're showing is a difference between solid logs and some of our premium engineered logs. This particular display also is showing you one of our heavy timbered exposed roof systems that is available. This particular one is referred to as a beam and purlin roof system. Now the beams are the units that run from the top of the ridge down to the log walls, and the purlins actually are notched and go and run parallel to the ridge beam, as you can see here. These are all fastened by steel plates and hardware referred to as gusset plates. And then typically our systems would include exposed heavy timber beams wherever you might see have a second floor application or see these exposed beams. So what I'd like to do next is we'll go over and we'll find out and show you exactly how we start the process with the raw materials. Now before we arrive at the raw materials that I promised to show you, I wanted to take a moment to show you one of our other options. I mentioned earlier that we do a timber frame version. Very popular choice with our clients. Two distinctly different looks, and so I want to share that with you and give you an idea of some of the other products that we do have available. Now if you look here, this is a true timber frame display. Now the distinction between the timber frame, obviously it's an exposed skeleton comprised of heavy timbers that are cut utilizing time-tested mortise and tenon joinery. And as you can see here, these are actually fastened with oak pegs to hold the joinery in place. The first one that you see here is actually called a hammer truss. That's the style. There's a lot of different styles available to choose from as well. But it's very beautiful. It has some very clean lines, and it's becoming a very popular choice with our client base as well. So as we go ahead and move on over, we'll walk our way over and I'll show you some of the raw materials as they start. And this is how, what you just saw, this is how it starts. So what you're seeing here is you're seeing some oversized 2x ply material. It's an eastern white pine species. We use that predominantly, although we can do some different species as well. White cedar and red cedar are optional species that we can use. This is raw material. So what happens, this material, we procure this, and a common question that I get is, Brad, where does this material come from? We procure this up and down the eastern seaboard, anywhere from Maine, Pennsylvania, New York, down about as far south as North Carolina is about as far as that goes. So this material is dried to our exacting tolerances. So everything that we offer is a kiln dried product. We're going to take this product on these oversized plies, and we're going to actually go through a lamination process, which you're going to see in a few minutes. We also offer solid logs and timbers as well. So additionally, everything is kiln dried. The smaller plies will be dried down to an average moisture content of approximately 9%, whereas the large solid timbers are going to be dried down to 19%. One key thing to remember is that both of these offerings, whether it's our premium engineered or it's our solid timbers, are truly kiln dried. And what that means to you and the benefit to the consumer is that once these homes are assembled, there are no adjustments due to settling required. So in other words, we're eliminating a lot of maintenance, but giving you a better quality home than something that's not truly kiln dried. So we do have an option with lots of different log profiles and different sizes. This is one of the smaller versions that you're going to see here, but we'll show you some of the other options later through the process today. So now we're going to go ahead and head over to the lamination process, and we'll show you that step. All right, now we've taken our raw materials and we've planed that material in order to achieve the best adhesion through our lamination process. And here you're going to see material coming down the line. It's going to be glued. And then this piece here that Kevin's carrying, we don't want the glue because that's going to be the top piece of one of the logs or the timbers that we're manufacturing. As you can see, this material is then fed through the conveyor system up through the top and then dropped down. And as each additional piece of material is set on there, it'll drop down one step further. Once this run is complete, this material is then going to be moved forward into the press where it's actually going to be set with pressure and microwave frequency as well to help the drying process. Now typically on a log this size, you're going to be looking at a drying time of approximately 12 minutes where it'll actually stay in the press. This particular log that we're creating today is going to be a 6 by 12 log, so it's going to be 6 inches wide and it's going to be 12 inches tall. And we'll show you the profiling and the planer mill in one of the next processes, so you'll see exactly how that works. Now you can see here where Kevin is able to determine and find the most aesthetically pleasing side of the boards going through here. So we have control over the quality and the final finished product in terms of aesthetics. He's grading out a piece of material that is going to be used for the top. Any imperfections can be placed on the inside of that log so they will not be seen and they won't affect quality whatsoever. Just gives our customers a better finished product in the end result. After the logs have been glued and put together, they are moved into the press housing where they'll be secured with pressure and radio frequency, as I mentioned earlier. You can see the logs, or the future logs, being pressed from both sides, and you'll see the top is also coming down to add additional pressure. With this size log, again a 6x12, we're looking at an average of about 12 minutes for the drying process to occur. Now the exterior, the glue on the exterior that you may see pressing out will actually be a little bit tacky after the process, but the glue that is inside and not exposed will be completely dry and potentially could be profiled right after this process is complete. Typically we'll wait just a while before the exterior glue is dried so that the workings don't gum up. You don't have any issues with the machinery. So once the logs are pressed, they've completed this process. The next step in the process is going to be taking these raw or oversized cants and taking them over to our planer mill, where we'll actually put the profile of the log that our customer has selected. One of the requirements with our laminated or premium engineered product is a strength test for each batch of logs that we manufacture. Portions are cut out of the logs and they are brought over to this digital strength tester. The minimum requirement before the break point is 1,300 pounds per square inch. So the blocks are placed in this machine, it's tightened up, a digital readout will come out, and it will show where the break point is. In this particular example, you can see that it was over 4,300 pounds before we had a failure. So it far surpassed the required strength test. And these are all monitored by independent inspectors that can stop in, check our log books, and do testing while they're here as well. What'll happen, interestingly enough, that the wood will fail prior to the glue. So in other words, the glue is the strongest member of this. The wood fibers will separate and break prior to the glue failing. After the lamination process has been completed, the large blank logs are moved over and transferred to this conveyor system. The next step in this process will entail the actual profiling of the logs that this particular customer has selected. Now in this case, our customer has selected a 6x8 D-shaped log with a single tongue and groove top and bottom fastening system. We install cutting heads that are custom designed for each one of the various log profiles that we offer. As the logs are fed down through the planer mill, a series of cutting heads will actually remove excessive material and create an exacting exterior profile. Now you can see here as the logs are coming through the profile with the finished profile on it. We also periodically cut samples of each of the log profiles just to check for exacting tolerances to make sure we're on track with everything. As the logs go through the profiler, they're pushed on this conveyor system, and the next step in the process is that these logs now get graded. So our experts are looking for anything that does not meet the strict grading standards of the Log Home and Timber Home Council, which we are a proud member of. So they're looking at it visually. They're looking at the size of any checking or any knots. Now in this case, with our laminated material, there's virtually no checking. So it's very much like a furniture quality product. And you'll see here that anything that's marked in red indicates that it'll not be utilized in any of our finished materials. So after Roger and Tim do their grading processes, we stack these blank logs onto a cart, and they'll be transferred on to the next process, which is going to be the pre-marking. Now we've reached the stage where we're going to be going through and we're actually going to be pre-marking the logs. And in so doing, we're going to be telling the people that are on the cut line exactly what needs to happen to each and every one of these logs. So each log goes in a specific place within this particular home. It's like a big jigsaw puzzle, but we're providing the answers for the builders so we can ensure a beautiful outcome. What'll happen is we're trying to utilize the material to its maximum potential. And one of the things that we do is we pre-cut the logs to length, we pre-cut door and window openings, and we go through various processes as well. So you'll see here that there's an alphanumeric marking on each log that also indicates the exact length of the log, and it also tells the manufacturing guys exactly what steps and processes need to be made. As we look at this over here, you'll see this is log 2P, exactly 7 feet long. So this storyboard is created for each one of our clients' homes, and the builder is able to use this for their stacking purposes out in the field. One of the questions we sometimes get is, what's the perspective of this? So in other words, these storyboards and these wall drawings are placed in such a fashion that it would be as if you're standing inside the house and looking out to the outside. Now that the pre-marking process has been completed, we transfer those logs over, as you can see here, and we're going to transfer them on to the conveyor line for the actual pre-cut line, as we refer to it. And you can see that here behind me. So the first step in this process will be to go ahead and square up the log and cut away any of the undesirable parts that we don't want included. So you'll see this chop saw come up from underneath. And of course, we're always thinking about safety first. But you'll see here, Tim is going to throw that into this pile that we collect all the pieces and parts and cut points off. And we use those to heat our wood-burning furnace in the wintertime here in the shop. In addition to saving the larger parts, we also collect the sawdust. And you can see the collection system here. So the sawdust is gathered into tractor trailers, and we make that available to the local farmers for their livestock to utilize. We try to be good stewards of the environment and use absolutely every part of the tree that we're blessed with. The next step is cutting the log to the exact length. And Tim will make his measurements here to verify the exact tolerances. Now, when we're cutting these to length, we're dealing with exacting tolerances of less than 1/32 of an inch down to 0 tolerance. Now that that cut is made, Tim's going to transfer this log down, and you can see this particular log is marked with an S on both ends, which signifies this end is going to get a spline joint, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a moment. So we use industrial routers turned on their side in order to make these spline cuts, and Tim will show you how we do that next. This particular log calls for a spline on each end, and so we have those set up for a left and for a right spline cut, as you can see here. So you'll get a really good look at how this spline cut is completed. Now I just want to explain a little bit more in terms of what a spline joint actually is. And so we've mocked up a display here to show you. So wherever we have two logs that actually butt together to create a butt joint in the middle of a wall, it would look like this. We need to make sure there's a way to properly seal this so we don't get any air or water infiltration coming through this particular joint. So on the job site, as these logs are being stacked, this spline void will be filled with caulk, and then this spline would be driven into that void. That's going to create that seal so you don't get any air or water coming through this particular seal. Once the spline joints have been completed, the next step, especially with this particular log profile, it's going to require an additional step that is not required on all the different logs, but we're going to create a small dedicated groove where foam gasketing is going to be applied, and Matt's going to show us how to do that right here. So you can see that we've got a recessed and dedicated groove where foam tape will be placed in here to help seal this joint as well. Now this particular log is our premium engineered 6x12, and it's going to have a dovetail corner assembly on that. We haven't talked about that yet, but the next step for this one will be the fact that we're going to take custom-made jigs, and we're going to use a chainsaw to actually cut and remove the unnecessary material here to create that beautiful dovetail. You may be familiar with dovetail. You find that utilized in a lot of fine furniture and things of that nature. Certainly is a very strong corner and is certainly known for its quality as well. So I'll get out of Matt's way and I'll let him cut that corner. A couple passes are required in order to do this. Now after the top surface has been completed, Matt's going to turn this over and he's going to do the opposite bottom side of this particular corner. The dovetail corner, just so that you know, is our second most popular corner assembly. We have other corner assemblies that are available as well. Now he'll go back and he's going to refine that corner. And there you have it. I'll go ahead and have Matt remove that jig. And that's what the dovetail corner looks like. And there again, you can see the dedicated spot for the gasket to go in to help make that weather tight as well. Once the dovetail corner is completed, this log is going to be transferred back over to the cut line. And we're going to actually go through and we pre-drill for lag bolt placement. So it takes the guesswork out for the builder on the job site. Not only do we pre-drill, but we also countersink. That way there's no issues with the heads of the lag bolts sticking up above the tongue and groove levels. So if Matt, you want to go ahead and transfer that over. And we'll move on down to the next station where we actually utilize the drill press to do all of our. Now with the dovetail corner, there's one additional hole that Matt's going to be drilling here because that's going to require a shorter lag bolt. It's unique unto the actual dovetail corner assembly itself, so it's the only corner assembly that utilizes that extra drilling spot. Once it's gone past that point, you can see that Matt is referencing back to that storyboard that we looked back at in the pre-cutting process. And by marking that, it indicates that that log has passed by this particular station, so we have accountability for this material all the way through the process. Now he's going to go ahead and drill in. And again, about every 30 inches at the maximum spacing, we will be doing the pre-drilling. Now he's doing the countersinking. And we have a legend that marks out and tells us exactly where those need to be drilled so as to try to avoid stacking lag bolts on top of each other in the course below. Now when we're actually cutting a house and we're drilling out for lag bolt placement, we have an automated counter that we utilize, so it tells us how many lags are required for that particular house. And then we add an additional 10% just to ensure there's plenty of quantity out there on the job site. This particular house utilizes solid logs for the gable ends. And so as one of the additional steps that we take to make it easier again for the builders and make it more builder friendly, we're actually going to see here that we have an 11-12 roof pitch marked out here clearly so the operator knows. And what's going to happen is we're going to pre-cut that to the 11-12 roof pitch with this radial arm saw. We've already got it preset for that particular angle, and so I'm going to back out of the way and let Dan go ahead and make that cut for us. All right, so now for this particular log, it's reached the stage where it's going to go through its final inspections. We're going to go back through and we're going to look for any blemishes that don't meet our high quality expectations. We'll also make sure that the length of the log is correct and that all the applications have been done with the pre-drilling spline joints, and in this particular case, the roof pitch. So once Dan is done with his visual inspections, he's going to again mark it off of the legend that you see on the pre-cut sheet up above. Again, that accounts so we know that that particular log has passed that particular inspection, and we now can account for that particular log as we're getting ready to pack it and bundle it. All right, so now that the final stage has been completed, we do take one additional step for any of the logs that are actually on the first course. And since these logs are going to be sitting right on the subfloor, we're going to remove some of that material so that the outside log actually extends over past the subfloor. Again, a good way to seal so no water can make its way into that connection. So moving on down here, this machine is specifically designed just to remove some of the material, not all of it, as we want to create that lip. So we can go ahead and take this next step, and then we'll show you the finished product as well. Now I'll have the guys take this log out and turn it over so you can see where we've removed this material. And if you could, you're going to get a close-up. You can see where that lip that I talked about that we created. So the subfloor, it's going to sit right on there flush. It'll be fastened to that. And that lip will create that edge that we want to have in there. We'll then take a wooden tack strip and we'll nail that on so that it can sit flush during the shipping process. Once it's arrived at the job site, the builder will then remove that before applying the first log to the subfloor. Thank you, guys. Now, one of the other steps that we take, it takes a little bit longer, but in the long run, it's going to save the builder's time and eventually the customer's money. So what you see, as we've talked about, we have the alphanumeric numbers with the also lengths and any of the other spline markings and the pre-cut gable ends as well. But what we do is we take and we inverse stack the logs. And what that means in layman's terms is the logs that the builder needs to get started with, we try to bundle at the top of the packages so that he can work his way down sequentially without having to break these packages open on the job site and search for particular logs. All of the bundles are marked, indicating what rows are included in each of the packs, so he doesn't have to search for those. Everything is then wrapped and it's banded and secured and ready for shipment to the job site. Now, in the beginning, if you remember, we referenced the fact that we do not only our beam and purlin systems that had the gusset plates featured, but we also offer a timber frame version. Now, that is utilizing time-tested mortise and tenon joinery and a lot of other things. And there's a lot of different trusses and things that we can manufacture. Again, just like we do all the pre-cutting steps to make it easier, we do the same thing with our timber frame materials as well. So what I'd like to focus on right here is we're getting ready to do the pre-cutting steps in this various truss that you see here on the diagram. Again, this is more or less a pre-cut sheet, if you will, much like we saw in the actual log portion earlier. So what we're going to be showing you specifically is there's what's referred to as a lap joint here, where two boards will go through and be connected with this heavy timbered material. And we're going to show you how we cut that one, and then we're going to come up here and we're going to need a couple pockets. So we're going to need the actual mortises on these top rafters. We're going to show you how we cut those, and then we would utilize these angled support braces here in a king post style truss. So I'm going to have Matt go ahead and cut this lap joint right now, and then we'll have him finish the other pieces in a minute. And there you have it. So that's a lap joint. And how that would work is, you can see how we've got half of the material remaining. So another member is going to be situated and fastened this way, thus creating what we refer to as that lap joint. Very strong way to do it, exacting pocket tolerances, so it's going to get a really nice tight fit when we're all said and done. Now as we transition over, as I mentioned, the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be cutting some mortises on these two top rafters. So, you know, we've come a long way, and there are still people that do the handcrafted with the hammer and chisel. We're a little bit more efficient, very exacting. So we're just gaining some efficiencies by using some of the modern equipment that's now available to us. So Matt, if you want to go ahead and start that. Of course, you can see he's got it all laid out and ready to go. Okay, we'll come in here and we'll see. Now, of course, this joint is not going all the way through. So in other words, the tenon will fit down into this mortise pocket, which is very exacting. We'll actually drill through the side of this heavy timber, and we'll secure this with a oak peg, as we talked about earlier in the show. And so that is much quicker, much more efficient, but still a very desirable, high quality cut, as you can see. We're going to move on over, and I'm going to show you a couple of the other preparations that we do. This is going to be on that same project that we're looking at. And over here, Randy's going to show how we're going to cut the dovetail, how we're going to cut a pocket so that one of the members will slide down in there, have an extremely tight pocket, a great connection, and it'll be very stable, very sound, and very strong as well. So you can see here we've done a jig, much like what we saw when we were doing the dovetail corners. And that works in conjunction. You saw the machinery is attached to this plate, so it slides up and down on that, and it's affixed to the member itself. So again, it gives you very exacting tolerances. It makes a great pocket. Now that the plate's removed, we're going to go ahead and put a test fit here. Basically, this would be a load carrying beam that would go across, and this would represent the heavy timbered floor joist that we looked at the top of the show as well. So this would actually be supporting a second floor application once it's all said and done. And so as he creates each one of these pockets, he'll test fit that just to make sure it's got a nice tight fit. We've got some other examples as well of some various joinery when it comes to some of the actual trusses. Here you'll see a combination where we actually have a lap joint with two different top trusses here, and then we've also created this heavy beam pocket as well, just like the one you saw. Slightly different application, and then again, as we referenced earlier, these lap joints are going to be fastened with these oak pegs. So there's no mechanical fasteners required, and that's really the caveat, that the distinction that we make here versus post and beam or timber frame. Post and beam, we utilize mechanical fasteners, gusset plates, things of that nature like we looked at earlier, whereas the timber frame is truly utilizing the wooden pegs to secure everything in place. We've got another example over here of a different joint that we've used. This would again be used in rafters on a roof assembly in a particular home. And as you can see here, there's a little bit of detail. We'll go ahead and close that together so you'll see how well that fits together here. And once that's secured, it's snug. You're not going to be able to get that apart with your hands, so it's certainly going to be structurally sound as well as aesthetically pleasing. Got one other example we'd like to share with you today. This is just another roof truss. Again, it's utilizing some lap joints at the very top, as you saw us do earlier. Again, we've pre-drilled part way down through for the actual peg placement itself. Not only there, but also the center member here, what we refer to as a collar tie, is also pre-cut. So the joints are cut, as well as we pre-drill half of that here. Once this is established and it's actually constructed at the job site, the builder would then drill through the rest of the way for that peg, and then it can be secured utilizing the pegs we refer to. Now, one thing to note just about the timber frame, you can utilize a timber frame roof system in a log home. They're interchangeable, so you have some options there in terms of, if you like the looks of something, you could even do beam work like this in a conventional home, or the whole home could be a true timber frame, and you could utilize different exterior finishes, whether that's stone, hardy board, for example, using structurally insulated panels as well. We supply all those various products in our portfolios. Well, now that you've seen some of our manufacturing processes, we thought we might switch gears a little bit and show you a house that's under construction, very near completion, but we can point out some of the materials that we saw in terms of our manufacturing and some of the other materials that we supply in our packages as well. Now, this particular customer selected the same log that we looked at, but that we were profiling with the 6x12 and pre-cutting. In this particular case, they've selected a chinking groove. So you can see that chinking has been applied here. It's just for aesthetic purposes only. It has nothing to do with maintaining a tight seal. So it's really just for aesthetic purposes. And they've also done something else. They've selected our hand-hewn option. This can be applied to any of our log profiles. In this particular case, this particular client also selected it for all their beam work. So they did this on both the inside and the exterior as well, and all the beam work. Now in this case, something I will point out is that this is a solid log. We talked a little bit about that earlier versus our premium engineered. And interestingly enough, right now about 70% of our clients are selecting our premium engineered material over the solid log. Both are fantastic choices. You can't go wrong with either one, but this one will show and will promote some of the checking that we referred to. So these cracks that you see here are referred to as checks. Not an issue, not a structural problem, but it is going to be inherent to the larger logs, if you will. So this is the sunroom that we're in right now, and we're going to make our way over in through to the great room. I'd like to point out some of the other features of this particular home. And as you can see, this is referred to as a great room, and it's going to be a fantastic great room. Very stunning, a lot of wow factor built into it. And if you recall at the top of the show, we had looked at some of the various roof assemblies and roof styles that we had. This one is much like the one that we saw, the smaller display. So this is our beam and purlin roof system. And again, the beams go from the top of the ridge and they make their way down to the walls. And the purlins are notched and they go and run parallel to the ridge beam. They're notched that go over top of the beam work. So all those beams are fastened by the gusset plates that we talked about earlier as well. And everything you see on the beam work and the logs themselves have that hand-hewn finish. Now, most all of our customers' vision of a log home includes a fireplace. And this is one heck of a fireplace. It's stunning. It is magnificent. It's going to be a great gathering spot for this family once this home is done. And you can see the stone here in a dry stack version. We also do supply stone in our packages upon request, so we can provide those for you. And you can see they've made a real rustic, heavy beam choice here that was used out of a local bank barn. Quite stunning. In our packages, we supply windows. We supply Anderson windows and Therma-Tru doors for the exterior doors. And we also provide an optional weather shield window, which this particular customer selected. You'll notice here the heavy treads and the heavy timbered stairs that are open as well. That's also part of our package offering. So it's very, very complete, but you do have total package flexibility as well. So you can pick and choose what components you'd like and what components you don't like. So to put a bow on it, we've enjoyed showing you our processes, helping you understand and get to know Timberhaven a little bit more. If you're interested in a log or a timber frame home or a hybrid home, you just want to find out more information, or you'd like to take a personal tour, please feel free to give us a call at our 800 number. That's 855-306-5678. You can follow us on Facebook or Twitter, and certainly we'd encourage you to go to our website, and that is www.timberhavenloghomes.com. We've enjoyed the tour. Hope you have as well. Hope to hear from you soon. Thank you.